Okay, we're going to try and see about filling in the unit circle here. And I'm going to start with where 0 degrees is on the unit circle. And then I'm going to show again when we go one whole cycle around, that's 360 degrees. Okay. And then halfway around is 180 degrees. And then if you remember correctly, halfway between 0 and 180 was 90 degrees, which is up here at the top. Okay. And then what we did is we did the 45-degree increments, showing that there were 8 total 45 degrees going around the unit circle. So this is your first 45 degrees. 90 up here at the top of the y-axis is your second 45 degrees. Then we have 135 degrees. Then we add 40 again, we're at 180. We add 45 degrees more, we have 225 degrees. And then down here at the bottom of the y-axis is 270 degrees. Okay, and we add 45 degrees more is 315, and then we're up at 360. And then using a different color, we realize going around 30 degrees, there are 12 30-degree angles. So your first one is 30 degrees, 60 degrees, 90 is your third 30 degrees. Then you over here in this next quadrant, let's see if I can move this. Okay, is we've got 120 degrees, then add 30 more, we're at 150. Then we add 30 more, we're at 180. Add 30 more, you're at 210. Add 30 more, you're at 240. Now we're at 270, which we already recorded. Add 30 more into the fourth quadrant, we're at 300. And then add 30 more, we're at 330. Okay? So notice how my 30 and my 60-degree angles are both in the same color, but they're showing that it's 30 degrees apart. Then the next thing we did is we actually then switched over and we went to radians. Okay, and so at our radians, we start at 0 radians. And then we also go all the way one whole cycle around. We found that that's the whole circumference of a circle. And the circumference of a circle is 2 pi times your radius. Remember, this is the unit circle, so it's 1. So it's 2 pi times r, which is just 1 here. So we're going to say it's 2 pi down below. Okay? Then we know that halfway around, where 180 is, that's a pi. Okay? Now, this is where we came across again and said that we did our 45 degrees and said that there were 8 of those 45-degree angles. So I'm going to start at my 45 degrees, and what we did is we did 2 pi divided by 8, which gives us pi over 4 for our first 45 degree. Then at 90, that's our second 45-degree angle, that's 2 pi over 4, which reduces to pi over 2. Okay? Then go to where 135 is, that's your third pi over 4. Then go to where 180 is, and that's your fourth pi over 4. And I'm going to write that over here, which reduces to pi. Okay? Then go into 225, which is 5 pi over 4. Then we go down to 270 because that's 45 degrees more, and that's 6 pi over 4. But 6 pi over 4 can reduce to 3 pi over 2. Then go to 315, and we are at 7 pi over 4. And then we're at 360, or 2 pi, and that is 8 pi over 4. Okay, oops, there. Then going around our 30 degrees, we realized that there again, there was 12 30-degree angles, including your 60 degrees as well. And so we wrote our 30 degrees and realized 2 pi divided by 12 reduces to pi over 6. So there's every 30 degrees you go a pi over 6. So this is 1 pi over 6 at 60. That's 2 pi over 6. But 2 pi over 6 reduces to pi divided by 3. Okay? Then at 90, that's 3 pi over 6. Then at 120, we're at 4 pi over 6. And that reduces, so 4 pi over 6 reduces to 2 pi over 3. At 150, we're at 5 pi over 6. Then at 180, that's 6 pi over 6. Okay, see how that works. Then at 210, we're 7 pi over 6. 240 is 8 pi over 6, which reduces to 4 pi over 3. Then add 30 degrees more, we're at 270, which is 9 pi over 6. And then at 300, we are at 10 pi over 6, which reduces to 5 pi over 3. Then at 330, we're at 11 pi over 6. Okay? Then you end up at 2 pi, which is 12 pi over 6. And if you want to write it, you can write it to show that that's why you went 12 times around 30-degree angles. Okay? Now, we are going to do our actual ordered pairs. And so we know this is the unit circle, and so we are going over on our x-axis, and we go over 1 unit, and we go up 0 for our y. Okay? And if you want to realize that we're looking here, going across on the other side of the x-axis, that's negative 1 and 0. Then if we go up to where 90 degrees is, it's hard to see the actual ordered pair here, but it's at 0, 1. Let's see if I can get the picture to come up. Nope. Okay, so up here, realize the ordered pair is at 0, 1 up there. Sorry, that's hard to see. Now, if you remember our 30, 60, 90 triangles, we were realizing then that x-coordinate is always the cosine and the y-coordinate is always the sine. If you look at where that dot is right here on the unit circle, and if you look, you can tell that that dot is halfway up the x-axis from 0 to 1. Since that dot is halfway up the x-axis, that tells you your y-coordinate has to be 1/2. Knowing that this is coming from the 30, 60, 90 triangle, we then know that the x-coordinate has to be radical 3 divided by 2. Okay? And then if we do our pi over 4, which is 45, that's your 45, 45, 90 triangle. Both of those ordered pairs must always be the same. Okay? And then if we go to our 60-degree angle, if you look where that dot is and compare that, going all the way down to your x-axis, you can see that that dot in the x direction is halfway between 0 and 1. So that coordinate up there for x is going to be 1/2. Okay, this is getting messy. And then the y-coordinate is radical 3 over 2. Now, if you notice, every quadrant, your first quadrant, your second quadrant, third quadrant, and fourth quadrant all have 30, 60, and 45-degree angles. And as long as you can see that both of these 30, 60, and 45-degree angles are consistent with their ordered pairs, then you could have every 30-degree angle in each quadrant must be radical 3 over 2 comma 1/2. It's just the signs switch. So over here in the second quadrant at 150 degrees, we know that it's going to be negative radical 3 over 2 comma 1/2. Okay, and then our 45 is negative square root 2 over 2 comma square root 2 over 2, because we are negative in the x direction in the second quadrant. Then up here at 120, we know that it's negative 1/2 comma radical 3 over 2. Okay? Then if you go into the third quadrant, again, find your 30-degree angle like you did from the first quadrant, and the ordered pairs are the same. It's just the signs are negatives. So for 210, it's going to be negative square root 3 over 2, comma, negative 1/2. Then at the 225, which is your 45-degree angle, it's negative square root 2 over 2, comma, negative square root 2 over 2. So it's 2. Then down here at your 240-degree angle, it's going to be negative 1/2, comma, negative square root 3 over 2. Okay, and then one angle we haven't given the ordered pair to is 270, and you can see obviously directly across from it at 90 it's 0, 1, so 270 must be 0, negative 1, because it just went down on the y-axis. Then at 300 degrees, 315 and 330, those are your 60, 45, and 30-degree angle respectively. So if we go at 330, we will see that that's our 30-degree angle, so it must match every 30-degree angle in the quadrant. So it's positive square root 3 over 2, negative 1/2. And then for our 45-degree, which is 315 in this case, is going to be square root 2 over 2, negative square root 2 over 2, because the y's are negative in the fourth quadrant. And then at 300, it's going to be positive, 1/2. Let me just undo that. Positive 1/2, comma, square root 3 over 2, negative. Okay, and that's your ordered pair. Now your unit circle is done, and now you can remember where all of your angles are, where your ordered pairs are, and where your angles in degrees and radian. And just don't forget, it goes x, y, and don't forget that x is cosine, and y is sine. Okay, and then you're going to use these points to help you figure out what the cosine and sine are, and tangent for each of these angles. And tangent, don't forget, is y divided by x.